Starting the live stream. So let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Everybody who's on the Zoom, anyone who's watching on YouTube, we got another edition of our member spotlight today. So we're joined by Jessica Thoens and Herschel Jenkins. So what's up? What's up, guys? How are you?
What up, Adam? How you doing?
Good, good. All right. So we're going to. Sorry. Had two things going on at once. We're going to start with Jessica, and then we'll get to Herschel after. So, Jessica, what's going on? How's everything going?
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
The COVID life continues, right?
How has COVID life been for you?
Pretty good. I mean, what are we on month? Geez, I don't even know now. 5, it seems like. We're almost there. 4 or 5.
Yeah.
It's been pretty good. It's been a lot of, I feel like personal growth, a lot of interactions with stuff like these. Obviously, throughout the whole thing, I got the opportunity to find out about Rising Coaches, which has been awesome. And just every, little nugget you guys have, all the information you've been doing. And you guys have honestly been a huge help to me and networking and whatnot. So it's been wild times, but it's been good times.
Well, I appreciate the plug. I'm glad you've gotten some value out of it.
A ton.
Well, Jessica, let's. So you're currently at Eastern Washington. You're the GA there, but tell us kind of how you got into coaching and your kind of journey through hoops.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of had a crazy start to my college playing career. Not exactly how I would draw it up. When you go into the whole thing, you think you're going to spend 4 years at one place, and mine was kind of a crazy journey. I actually started at Linfield College, which is now Linfield University over in McMinnville, Oregon. Kind of had a crazy first semester there. Long story short, ended up transferring out after the first semester. Went to a NAIA school in Portland, Oregon. And while I was there, I ended up meeting a really awesome athletic director at the time, Jamie Joss, and he helped me petition for my year back from Linfield, because at the time it was like game wise, not if you had stepped foot on the court or not. So anyway, ended up petitioning for that back, and then knew that I didn't want to stay in the inner city school, but it was just a great stepping stone for me. And then through one thing and another, I ended up at Whitworth University up in Spokane, Washington, which I absolutely loved. Played 3 amazing years there, was pre-med in my undergrad major, and then also got an athletic coaching minor. I started coaching when I was in high school around my junior year, I believe. I got into some clinic coaching, and then I was doing some AAU coaching for younger teams, and just absolutely loved it. Knew I was passionate about it. Knew I just loved being in the gym, loved being on the court, loved being with the littles. They're a fun time if anybody's ever been at that level. And so I ended up graduating, and I took a gap year like a lot of people do. I thought I was going to go down the PT route, decided against it, and told my college coach, gosh, the summer of, oh goodness, 2018, I believe it was, that I wanted to try to get into a GA position. And at the time, GAs are kind of like dwindling down, unfortunately. But she was like, I'll keep my ear out for you. I got a couple offers to go over to the East Coast, which is where the majority of my family is from. But I was just hesitant to leave my mom and my sister. And so I was like, okay, we'll just see. We'll wait it out a little bit. And then randomly in late June at like one of the Oregon City tournaments, my college coach called me and was like, hey, we might have a plug for you at Eastern Washington. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I'd love to go back to the Spokane area. And long story short, ended up talking with Wendy Schuler, the head coach there. We hit it off, and she's like, hey, if you get into grad school, the position's yours. So 2 years later, got my sports administration degree, had a great time coaching there. And then, yeah, I just wrapped that up a couple weeks ago. So pretty
Nice.
cool stuff.
Congrats. Okay. All right. You gave it to us all at once. So, all right, let me go back and dissect. So Pacific Northwest was like a common theme. So did you grow up there? Like, what part are you from?
Yeah. I grew up in Oregon City, actually. So the end of the trail tournament, if anybody's ever been there, that was my hometown. So yeah, went to Oregon City High School. Yeah, loved it.
Okay. And then like you mentioned like pre-med, like I feel like it's real rare you find a coach with a pre-med degree. So were those like the options for you, like be a doctor or be in medicine or be a coach?
Yeah, doctor or coach, that's it. Those are the only 2
Yeah.
options. No, I actually come from a family of, doctors, so it's kind of in my blood, love science and love all of that, and so I really thought, like, going through, being an athlete, going through all the PT stuff, I loved it, but for me it's just like how it was. I don't know, when you face a decision in life, I think like you have to choose how you want to live, and for me it's like being a doctor is awesome, you get the money, you get to help people, but for me, like, there's just nothing that can, substitute getting into the gym, being on the court, pouring into the lives of young women, and so I just kind of made a crazy decision to completely pivot from the doctor pathway and choose coaching.
I bet your family loved that.
Yeah, they were like, "Oh, really? Like, you're not going to PT school?" This was their plan for like 6 years. And I was like, "Yeah, we're going to switch it up."
Nice. No, I love it. It's great. I mean, I imagine was it like during that gap year where you were, doing the PT thing that you
Mhm.
realized you really missed being around the game?
Yeah. Yeah. In that
Like
gap year,
sorry,
sorry
was
to
there
cut you
like a
off. Go
turning
ahead.
point or like a specific time you can remember where you're like, man, I got to get back into coaching?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because obviously in that gap year, what I was trying to do is get a lot of hours, because PT school takes a ton of hours for your application. So I was working at a clinic, and then I got an opportunity to coach at a school called Lake Ridge High School. They're 6A down in Oregon in Lake Oswego, and I ended up being the assistant on the varsity staff, and I just loved it. And I was like, these kids, like, I feel like that age group and a little bit younger is just like the heart of basketball, and I'm like, this is when I just fell in love with the game. This is when I knew I wanted to chase the college dream, and so being in that environment and helping that age group, I was just like, I got to get back into this. And I was like, there's no time better than right now if I can get a GA spot and get that master's degree taken care of. Because I was like, obviously, you need your master's to coach at the college level most of the time. So yeah, I was just standing in the gym one day and I was like, you know what? We're just going to go for it. We're going to chase this dream and see where it takes me.
That's awesome. And so you mentioned like you reach back out to your college coach and you're just kind of playing the waiting game, hoping like some opportunities arise. Are you doing anything else? Like you mentioned being at some tournaments there. Were you working camps or like visiting programs or were you just kind of hoping your coach would come through for you?
No, I was definitely active. I mean, right now is kind of a weird time if you're in the same shoes as I'm in, because you don't see as many of those positions opening up right now, which obviously for me, I'm not seeing as many of those, assistant coaching positions open up. But at the time when I was looking, there were GA spots like crazy across everything. So I was applying, like I said, across the country and reaching out and talking to a bunch of different people, and thankfully, like, growing up in Oregon City, like, there's a lot of basketball there, and so I had made a lot of really good connections. And like you had mentioned, the Pacific Northwest is it's a pretty tight knit community. Obviously, we have like less colleges, so everybody kind of knows everybody, which is something I've definitely learned in the college coaching world. So yeah, I was just like trying to network as much as possible, and then she came through with a college up here that was close, so it worked out really well for me.
Yeah, for sure. And so how was your time at Eastern Washington?
It was good. It was really good. I mean, obviously, like I said, I played NAI and D3, so I hadn't had that Division 1 experience. And we are a little bit smaller on the scale, but I mean, I am so thankful, so blessed for the opportunity. I got to do basically everything, which was awesome. So I was able to help with practice planning. I was able to get my toes into the recruiting, and I got to do, some different official visit stuff and tour kids around campus. And I got to be a part of practice every day. I got to help with individuals. And then I was able to really like dive into, different models like Just Play and Synergy, and put together different scout stuff and put together different film stuff. So honestly, like, my hands were not tied at all, which was a huge blessing. They just kind of threw me into the deep end and said, whatever you want to learn, you can learn. And if you have any questions, like, just ask. So yeah, I had an amazing time. I'm really, really grateful for it.
Um, what was like the big like compare the levels for you? So you've been at NAIA. What was the first school you were at? Was it D2, D3,
It was D3.
D3? So you've been D3 NAIA Division 1. you have a preference? Is there like a big difference that you've noted, or like what is the big difference that you notice? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, huge difference. Obviously, you have scholarship versus non-scholarship for across the different levels. But I think like the biggest thing I realized was just how much of a job D1 can be at times. And unfortunately, there's like things I like about that and things I don't like about it. Obviously, I love the fact that like the commitment level is as high as you can get. You know, you're in the gym expected to work daily, and you're going to get out of it what you put into it no matter what. And that, you know, that goes across every level. But yeah, definitely the huge commitment level. I mean, you're on the road traveling sometimes 4 or 5 days a week, so you got to really be on top of your academics and just staying on top of your body. D3 I absolutely love, just because you obviously don't have the athletic scholarship, so your passion for the game has to be there. You have to be, you know, self-sufficient. You have to be driving yourself. You have to be the one that's, you know, getting yourself in the gym, holding yourself super accountable. But my experience at D3, sometimes like my practices were harder than some of our D1 practices. And I'm like, you girls have no idea about conditioning. Like we were way different than this. But yeah, it was really awesome just to see the difference in that. And I think for me as a coach, just learning like what level I want to coach at, and realizing like I'm all for chasing the D1 dream, but in the same breath, I'm all about D3, I'm all about D2, I'm all about NAI. Like whatever level you end up at, I think is exactly where you're meant to be, and your impact, you know, it can go for years on end, and it doesn't matter exactly, you know, the D1 is not the only level out there.
For sure. Yeah, I always noticed like for me, once there was obviously a lot of differences in, you know, the off the court stuff and then the office and the staff and the size of the staff and all that. But once the ball goes up, it's like the same thing, right? It's basketball.
Exactly.
So, all right, one thing that was super stressful for me as a GA, and I feel like a lot of GAs can relate, is like you take the job and you're super excited. You know, I had a similar deal to you. Like I had never been to the Division I level, and the GA spot was like my first intro to that. So it was like great. I was celebrating, but instantly from the day you take it, you get a 2 year like ticking time bomb that you know is about to go off, and you're gonna get thrown out of the nest. So like, how have you approached that? I mean, it's the only position that has a definite time limit to it.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Honestly, I think what I've learned
You
through
just
this
had a
whole
look. You just had a look like I hadn't thought about that, and now you got me super stressed about it.
no, no, I have. It's just like I think what I realized so much about like this time has made me realize that like I should have been networking like 5 years ago, more so than I ever thought I needed to. And like people always tell you it's who you know, right? But honestly, through all this, it's like it's who knows you, but it's not just the quantity of people who know you or that you know, like it's the quality. And so like it takes time to build those relationships. It takes time to network and to get to know people. And kind of weave your way through that. So I think like what I learned in that 2 years is sitting here at the end of it is like I should have been doing this a million times more so than I thought I needed to. And it's like I was doing it, but I wasn't doing it how I, you know, with as much energy and effort that I should have. So that like look at was like I have experienced that. I'm like, dang it, I really should have done better in that aspect. But you know, hindsight's 2020. So I think, yeah, my biggest piece of advice if you're gonna get a GA position is use it, learn from it, do everything you possibly can, but like also know that you know that end time bomb is coming, and like you need to start networking today, the first day you walk in the door.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. So, what is next for you? Obviously, like you need a job. You picked the worst off season in the history of basketball to be in that situation.
Ever.
So, what's been like the game plan, and like what are you hoping for?
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely obviously had the aspirations to be a full-time assistant somewhere at some place. Like you said, these times unprecedented. Nobody has any idea what's going to happen. We don't even know if there's going to be a season. So, after a lot of like prayer and petition about it, I've kind of like relinquished all that control and just kind of taken in what comes. Just doing stuff like this, trying to network, trying to better myself, trying to work on what, you know, what I know are my weaknesses, and then yeah, if something comes across my table that I am willing to apply for, I'm definitely going to. One thing I have learned is I don't want to just apply for anything. I know a lot of people say like be willing to go anywhere, and I am, but I also don't want to just apply for something and get a position that I'm only applying for because of the times, if that makes sense. I want to be able to give my all to something and to really be invested. Because I think, the players deserve that just as much as the coaching staff. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm kind of come to that point that if I don't get something this year, I'm all right with that. And I know that there's a plan. So we'll see. Obviously, coaching is where I want to be, but you gotta trust. And for me, my faith is a big part of that. So I know God has a plan for me, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's still early. It's July. It's July 8th today. I always told
Is that
people
what it is?
today's July 8th. You got till usually on a normal year, you'd have till the end of August to find something. It's super like people don't, I feel like people lose sight of that and they want a job right away. Your GA spot ends in May. You want to have those loose ends tied up, but it really tests like your faith and your perseverance and dedication to it, because you may have to sit for 3-4 months with no job. And then I think this year with coronavirus, like depending on if the season, let's just say the season gets pushed back to January, like there may be some positions being filled in November, December. So sorry, Jessica, you may have to sweat it out a few more months.
Yeah,
No,
right.
hopefully not though. Hopefully you'll find something sooner than
My
later.
patience is being tested a little bit, but
So are you willing to, I know like, again, we talked about you stayed in that Pacific Northwest region. Is that important to you, or is it more about the fit of the program you go to work for?
yeah. I mean, I love the Pacific Northwest, but like I said, there's a lot less opportunity just because we have a lot less schools over here. So ideally, my dream would be to stay over here, but I know that in this career, like you kind of got to go where you got to go, but definitely fit wise too. Like I said, I don't want to just land myself somewhere just to land myself. So yeah, definitely looking for fit, and then we'll see what happens.
Awesome. I love it. Okay. Are there any questions for Jessica? I want to give our listeners a chance to ask you something. We've done a great job covering a lot of topics, so we may have them stumped. But if there's any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Um, as they think about that, Jessica, any like parting advice for anybody, whether they've been in the business like a long time or just getting into it? Like, what have you found to be, the most important thing about, coaching?
Yeah, I would say the most important thing that I've learned along the way is that it's cheesy, but it's true that like people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I've seen that all across the board. It's like show your kids that you care about them and they're going to jump to the moon for you. And I think that goes from littles in fifth grade all the way to our seniors at the college level. Just pour into them, invest in them, and they'll do whatever they can to, win, but to aspire to be great for you.
Yes, very true. Love that quote. I had it on my desk for many years. And when it
It's
went
a good
down,
one.
yeah. And I eventually like changed jobs and never put it back on my new desk, and I regretted it. So good words to live
You got
by.
to put that up there. Put that up there.
I know for sure. Okay. Any questions for Jessica?
Yeah, I got one.
Oh, go ahead, Herschel.
So Jessica, how did you balance school and working when you were a GA at Eastern Washington?
Great question. It's tough. All of my classes ended up being at night, so it was a grind to say the least. So I for the first couple quarters, because we were on quarters, which was a weird transition for me. But it was like Monday through Thursday, 6 to 9 p.m. So I'd get into the office at 8:30, do all my work, try to fit some homework in there if I had time, and then run off to practice. And then if I had time after practice, go grab food from like the cafeteria, and then jump straight into night class. So it was a grind. It's definitely a commitment, but I knew what the end goal was. I knew what I was striving for. So every single one of those 3-hour classes that was a little long, I knew it was worth it.
I almost forgot to ask Jessica. I need a quick scouting report from your playing career.
Scouting report, huh? Point guard, obviously, I'm like 5'3". So loves to pass, disher, driver, and that pull-up jumper will kill you.
Oh, okay. All right. Very good.
Mhm.
I like it. Most times people are like, oh, I was okay or whatever. They're very modest, but I'm glad you jumped right into, the facts.
Well, you asked. There you go.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Well, Jessica, thanks so much. I appreciate you being on here today, and always good to learn a little bit more about our members. So thanks again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Adam. I really appreciate it.
For sure. All right. So let's switch over to our other guest today, Herschel. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. All right, Herschel. So talk to us about, your story and how you got kind of started on the coaching path. Obviously, or not obviously, but you were a good player. Tell us about that and how you got into it.
Yeah, so obviously, since Jessica's from the Pacific Northwest, it would make sense that I was born and raised on the East Coast. I've been here my entire life in Jersey. Played college ball at College of Staten Island, Division III. Had a pretty good career there. Our teams were pretty good. And that's where I kind of realized I wanted to get into coaching. Around my junior year, I realized, like most guys, I'm not going to make it to the NBA. So I kind of started thinking about what can I do as a career. And our senior point guard at the time was coaching an AAU team on the island. And so he just invited me down to kind of watch his practices. And he just said, you don't have to do anything, just watch. And if you want to get involved, get involved. So I did that my junior year at the AAU level. And that was my first taste of coaching. And I loved it. And then after my senior year, we had a heartbreaking loss in the tournament. And I realized I wanted to do something to kind of get my feet even further deeper into coaching. So I ended up coaching a 5th grade AAU team on my own. And that was pretty fun. Got to really teach them the game little by little. Enjoyed the camaraderie of that. And I didn't really have a gap year, but I had to take an extra year of school because I switched my majors from biology to math. So in that extra year of school, I then decided to volunteer at a local high school over here in Jersey. So I was assistant coach for the varsity team, and then I was head coach for the JV team. So same thing with that. I really had to teach those kids everything from the ground up because a lot of those kids were more like soccer players or baseball players who were playing basketball. That was a really good teaching experience. And then from there, I really didn't have anything after I graduated. So I literally applied for everything and anything. I ended up getting a GA spot at the D3 level at Manhattanville College in New York. And that was great because just like Jessica said, I was able to do everything. I was able to coach, I was able to recruit, scouting reports, film, classes, housing, all that stuff. So I did that for 2 years. That was great. And while I was doing that, I was able to work with the hoop group. So I was able to do elite camp, the skills camp, and that was awesome for networking. I know a lot of the rising coaches guys are also hoop group guys as well. So that was awesome. After 2 years of that, I just so happened that my head coach at Manhattanville, Pat Scanlon, was really good friends with one of the assistants at Fordham, Mike DePaoli. And he said, if you don't have anything at the end of your 2 years, Fordham's going to have a volunteer spot open. So if you want to take that, we'll hire you. So I took a volunteer year at Fordham, just doing anything and anything that they wanted me to do. And thankfully, I earned their trust of head coach Jeff Neubauer. And when our video coordinator left, I got bumped up to video coordinator. I did that spot for 2 years. And then our Dobo just left the previous year, and I got bumped up to Dobo. So that's where I'm at now. So that's kind of a quick synopsis of how I got to where I am.
Yeah, your career in a nutshell. I like it. All right, let's go back to the college days. You kind of breezed over it. You said you guys were pretty good, but
yeah,
you guys won back-to-back conference championships. And did you make it to the Sweet 16?
Yeah, so my junior year, we were like number 21 in the country. We went to the Sweet 16. Lost to MIT. That game is still burned into my memory. But it was a tremendous year. And playing in college is the reason why I coach now, just because my coach, Tony Petoza, had such a great effect on me in my life. I just want to kind of give that back to other players. And then we won again in my senior year. So we went back to back, and then we lost in the first round that year, the Catholic. So, but yeah, my college years were great.
So give me the scouting report, Herschel.
On me,
Yeah.
6'4" forward, probably going to guard the best offensive player on the other team. Can do a little bit of everything offensively. Not really a ball handler though, so make him dribble.
All right. Defensive stopper. Let's switch that negative into defensive stopper. That's enough said. Awesome. And then you talked about Coach Petosa and obviously your success. Like, what was it about the way that he coached or the culture there that you guys established? Like, why were you guys so successful?
Yeah. So one, Petosa totally believed in what he did. And so we did the same thing all the time. It was all about what we can control and what we can do. It wasn't really much about the other team. One, because we didn't have the resources. So like we didn't really have film. We didn't have synergy. We didn't have all the stuff that we have now at the D1 level. So it was more about just us. So you can go into a practice, and over my 4 years, I knew exactly what the practice was going to be, just because it's just what it was. And he had a relationship with all of us. And then we were also good because the chemistry we had in our leadership. Like we had really good leaders. Like I said, our senior point guard who got me into coaching, who is now the head coach at College Staten Island. He was our captain for 2 years. So that leadership was definitely part of it.
I love it. And then you mentioned you were a math major. You went biology to math. So we got two scholars on today. That's another major. You don't see too many coaches. My former boss, Rick Ray, was a math major. But other than that, you don't see too many math majors in this profession.
Yeah. So all throughout grammar school and high school, I was always good at math. I was just always good with numbers. And then when I went into college, I was like, you know what, I might want to be like a biology major. And then I realized very quickly I don't want to do that. So I was like, let me just go with something I'm good at. So I was like, you know what, let me just go with math. And then if it's great because if coaching doesn't work out, math is a degree that I can always fall back on.
Yeah, for sure. And then how did you get your GA spot? Like you talked about how great of an opportunity it was, but like, how did that kind of come to fruition?
Right. So it was after I graduated, kind of that extra year I needed. And like I said, I literally applied to every single job, even those ones that are filled, like the D1 assistant jobs, like those are filled. I applied to all of those. And the Manhattanville job was posted. I had no connection to the coach whatsoever. I just applied, and he gave me a call, and I had a good interview. And I was actually the first person he ever hired who didn't play for him. And so, I was really lucky and really blessed to get that opportunity. So yeah, I didn't really have a connection. I just applied, and I guess I was lucky and blessed.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so same thing. Like you've been at multiple levels. Do you have a preference, and what's like the biggest difference that you've kind of noticed?
Yeah, so like you said, once the ball goes up, basketball is basketball, and as shown in this TBT tournament, there's plenty of D2 and D3 players that are as good or better than some D1 players. So the level of play is not necessarily that different. It's just, for me, the D1 level was such a shock because of the level of preparation we have. Because there's so much available to you, you're expected to really do your homework and know everything about your opponent, everything about yourself. So that's the biggest difference for me, is that we prepare for every game as if it's, game 7 of the finals. Like when I played at Division III and when I coached, we just didn't have that available to us. So all that information wasn't there. In terms of preference, like Jessica said, I love D3 just because I played there. And like those kids want to be there. Like their passion is great because they're paying to go to school and they're paying to be there. So in terms of coaching, I've never thought I'd be at this level, but I love it now that I am. But I also have a great spot in my heart for D3.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love the way you put it, like in terms of the level of preparation just increases. Is that always a good thing? Like, I feel like sometimes the teams that just do what they do sometimes have the most success. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it's just kind of like the society we're in with coaching now. Like we kind of feel like if the information's out there, you should know it. Um, like, you know, you don't want that, the fear of missing out. Well, like, well, if this team is using this service, like, why aren't we using this service? But I do agree with you. Like sometimes, like if you're a team that presses every single game, just do what you do, you know, and then make the other team adjust to you. Um, so yeah, I think it has its pros and cons, but I definitely, you know, like the fact that we're able to be 100% ready for every game that we go into.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, talk about your staff a little bit. You got in addition to Coach Neubauer, you got Dennis Felton and Anthony Evans, two former head coaches. So you got like three dudes on your staff that have, you know, sat in that chair and they've all won like at high levels at some point in their career. What is that like? I've never been on staff with three head coaches before.
Yeah, so it's actually a great dynamic because, you know, they're all willing to kind of take a step back and learn from each other. So Neubauer had tremendous success at EKU and is doing, you know, great things. Felton has also been at the NBA level, which is great. So like I've kind of in the last couple of years kind of thought about what the NBA could do for me if I wanted to go to that level. So he's been great with that. And then Anthony Evans is from New York, but you know he's been, you know, at FIU and Norfolk State. So it's great to just see like their different experiences and how they went about winning in different ways. And the best part about it is that they're all willing to share. Like, you know, they're all willing to help us out and share their stories and help us get better as coaches.
Have you ever seen the documentary on Dennis Felton's Georgia team?
Yeah, so he told us about that, and like within the first week, we had to show it to the whole team.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Great stuff. For those of you that don't know, you got to go watch it. What were they? Were like the last? Were they the 8th seed?
Yeah, and
tournament.
Yeah, and then you know that whole tornado came and basically was about to. He said like they were about 5 minutes away from canceling the whole tournament, and then like they were not going to get a chance to obviously play, and then of course they get a secondary location and they end up winning the whole tournament, and it's just a great story. So yeah, it's a great documentary if anyone wants to see it.
Didn't they have to like they won like 4 games in like 3 days? They had to play 2 games in 1 day, right?
Yeah, they had to play 2 games in 1 day. The locker room was basically like the size of a coach's office. They had almost no staff. It was a crazy story.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I got to ask you about the picture of Jeff Neubauer with no shirt on this year. That went viral for all the wrong reasons. What was he doing? No comment.
It's just, you know, it's just him being him.
He's a character, right?
Yeah, but like he's a character. But you sit down and talk to him for 5 minutes, he's a great guy.
He is definitely a great guy. I've had the pleasure of sitting next to him at an AAU game, and he started telling stories right away.
Yeah, no, he's got stories for days.
Definitely. So what's like your ultimate goals or you know, in this profession? You mentioned potentially NBA. You also mentioned loving the D3 level, enjoying the D1 level. Like what ultimately, you know, do you want to do with coaching?
Yeah, I think if I had my way in the next few years here, I would eventually go to the NBA level just because as I've moved up, I've learned so much. Like I remember when I was a GA at the D3 level, I thought, oh, like I know a lot about basketball. And then once I got here, I was like, wow, I really don't know anything about basketball. So I kind of feel like if I was to go up to the NBA level and learn even more, because they're always a few steps ahead, you know, analytically and with schemes and stuff, I would love to kind of learn at that level and then bring it back to college. So I think at the end of the road, I do want to stay in college just because I like that relationship part with the players. You know, you get them for 4 years, hopefully. So yeah, I would say that's like the ultimate goal.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. Like I've had a lot of friends and people through Rising Coaches who, you know, have been at the college level and then they go get like whatever the position is in the NBA or the G League, and they come back and it's like they've been enlightened. Like they just have so much knowledge. It's like, wow, that was like, it really does seem like you get like a crash course in just 1 year. of like another level of the game.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are just geniuses of what they do. So I feel like if I went there and brought it back, it'd be great for me.
For sure. Okay, Herschel, give us some advice for coaches, again, regardless of the level of their career, how long they've been in it. What have you found to be the most important thing in coaching?
Right. So my quick advice, I guess, to anybody who's kind of starting out, and also to Jessica specifically, what my Dobo told me when I was looking for a spot is the best jobs open in August, especially for young people, because you're usually single, you're young, and you have the ability to go anywhere. So like people who are, married with kids, if that job opens in August or September, they kind of can't go anywhere. So, just be patient. You never know when a job will open. Like you said, for this year, it might be November. So someone with a wife and kids is probably not going to go anywhere in November with their kids in school and stuff like that. So patience is definitely key. And I always tell people that I think kind of helped me is just that I want to be the person on staff where if you ask me to do something, you 100% know it's going to get done. So that's just what I live by, like that I'm reliable. And because of that, I've gotten more responsibility at Fordham and I've been able to move up. And I think just that one trait can help you get a lot of places.
Sage advice, Herschel. Really good. I appreciate it. All right. I want to open it up for questions. Does anybody have any questions for Herschel? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask, and then I'll get you started. Can you give me like a book and a podcast recommendation?
Yes. What's my favorite book? Well, my favorite book is 1984 by George Orwell.
Okay.
That's not really basketball related at all.
That's all right.
But I love it.
Yeah. Do you feel like we're living in 1984 right now?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. And the podcast I listen to, I'll give this guy a nice shout out, Andrew Cobian, Hofstra, Coaches and Coffee. He has a great podcast with a bunch of coaches every few weeks. A couple of guys I know have been on it. Kind of does like what you're doing, where he kind of just goes through their life and how they got where they're going.
Motorcycle going through
Yeah.
your
Wow.
Everything good?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's Jersey for you.
Yeah. Okay. So Coaches and Coffee in 1984.
1984.
I like it. Broad, very broad. All right, great. Any other questions for Herschel before we let him go today? All right.
I'll jump in and ask one.
Okay, go for it.
How has it been for you going from like, obviously you had your GA experience coaching, like being on the court, helping out. How has it been the last couple of years, like kind of taking that step back, going more video coordinator and being Dobo?
Right. So like you said, I can't be on the court coaching. I can't do like any of the film work with the guys, but I do every scout for our team in terms of prepping our head coach for what we're going to see defensively from the other team. So I'm still really heavily involved in game preparation. So I'm helping the staff with that. And then, so like Adam mentioned, we hired Dennis Felton and Anthony Evans this year. But before that, we had like a 3-month window where we didn't have assistants. So I was actually able to be an interim assistant for the summer for like 2 to 3 months. So I was able to kind of get that out of my system there during the summer, where I actually got to recruit and I was on the court every day with our guys. So I'm lucky to do that. But yeah, it's definitely tough going every day from being on the court to kind of having to take a step back and just do like the administrative work and just the film work. But, it's all part of the process.
Good question. Good answer. All right. Well, thanks again, guys. Herschel, Jessica, that was great. We appreciate you taking the time.
Appreciate it, Adam.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Thanks for having us.